Well, good evening and welcome to Rugby Borough Council's Audit and Ethics Committee meeting this Tuesday 1st of February. I'm John Eves, Vice Chair of this committee. This meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, if you wish to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'm obliged to read the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, then please could I ask you to make your way out of the building, down the main staircase and out of the main doors of the Town Hall and congregate at the entrance of Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Moving on to the agenda, the first item of business is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of December. Could I have members' agreement as to whether I can sign those? Thank you. The second item is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
We have apologies from the Chair, Mr. Datfield, from Councillor Ms. McQueen, and from Grant Thornton, the external auditors.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for members. A. Non-pecuniary interests. B. Pecuniary interests. And C. Notice under Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council council tax. We can move then on to item 4, the first main item of the agenda. And I think, John, you're going to lead us off on that.
Thank you, Chair. Just to state, because of the apologies from Grant Thornton, just suggest that if there are any questions surrounding the report that has been provided by Grant Thornton, we can minute them as part of this process, and I'll endeavour to get written responses from Grant Thornton colleagues as part of the formal submission of the minutes.
Do the members have any comments they wish to put to Grant Thornton on the paper as tabled? And I think then we'll sort of take that as read. I mean, it all looks fairly straightforward. Very much as previous years, except for the difficulties facing us over the current situation. Right, moving on then to item 5. Sorry, losing my place on the. This is the report again from John on the Treasury strategy.
Thank you, Chair. This report includes the Treasury Management Strategy and the Capital Strategy for the 21-22 financial year. There are 4 recommendations to Council, 3 relating to the Treasury Management Strategy, which includes the approval of the strategy. There's also the approval of the MRP policy, which hasn't changed from last year, and also a recommendation that the maximum investment limit in our current account is increased from £5 million to £10 million. And then there's also the 4th recommendation that the new capital strategy is approved with an initial 6-month review to take place after its incorporation. As a bit of an intro, as part of our Sit for Prudential Code and the Code of Practice for Treasury Management, we need to produce these 2 strategies on an annual basis. committee may recall that I think during the early part of 2020 we had a review from our Treasury Management Advisors link and on our Treasury Management Strategy, and it was the previous strategy incorporated the investment, the Treasury Management and capital in one document, and it was recommended that the capital elements of the strategy should be disaggregated and a separate strategy be produced for where there was a capital. It wasn't achievable for the 21-22 financial year, but for 22-23 we've carried out the piece of work, and the strategies appended to this document. In section 2.7 of the report, it does give the committee some updates on the compliance evidence and delivery review that took place for us. And the 3 outstanding actions were to produce a capital strategy, which is now complete. It's in a document. It also recognised we're in an over-borrowed position as an organisation, and as it mentions in the report, that we could only achieve that through repaying borrowing as it come up for renewal. And it says in the report that during 21-22 we've repaid £56 million of loans that we had outstanding, which has changed us from moving us now from an over-borrowed position to an under-borrowed position, which again achieves what was expected as part of the review. And also it recognised that we should update our treasury management practices on an annual basis. It's not part of this report because the plan is that our treasury management practices for the 22-23 financial year will come to the March Audit and Ethics Committee, because that's 12 months after the initial piece of work that took place this time last year. Just for information, the Treasury Management Strategies is fundamentally the same document as last year, given there's been no significant change in policy. It was also a piece of work that's been completed with our Treasury Management Advisors. Section 3 is the capital strategy. Actually going back to the Treasury Management Strategy, one of the recommendations is to increase our overnight limit from £5 million to £10 million. This is just recognising that for all of our counterparty list in that document, for most banks, we've got a maximum exposure of £10 million. We wanted to have a limit in our overnight bank account because we didn't want to have too much cash in our bank at any one time. But I think on reflection, when we're doing some work, having a limit of only £5 million has restricted us and created some issues during 21-22, because we're getting lots of grant through from government to deal with COVID, which meant that we had to move quite quickly in order to move that money out to other avenues in order to meet our treasury management strategy. And in some occasions, because of the timing of things, it's just impossible to get the money out of the bank and into other sources of investment in the time we had available. So all we're doing as part of this strategy is recommending that we have our overnight banking limit consistent with our other counterparties, so it doesn't expose us to any more risk. It just means overnight we can have £10 million in the bank. Moving on to the capital strategy, this is a new document that's been started from scratch. Capital and treasury are always intrinsically linked, and that's one of the reasons why the strategy was a combined strategy up until this financial year. And I think moving forward, they should be looked at in isolation, because there are lots of links. And I think when you look at the document, you'll see there is reference to capital in the treasury management strategy, and vice versa. The intention of this document is to support the delivery of our corporate strategy and lays down some of the fundamental components of good capital management. A lot of it's what we do anyway. It's just put it into a strategy so everyone can understand what decisions we're making. There are a number of strategies that are still in the process of being produced at the moment in the organisation. There's the climate change strategy, there's a housing strategy, and because they're a little bit further behind, and because we have to get this strategy adopted for the 1st of April, what we're recommending is that this strategy is adopted for the first 6 months, and then once all those other strategies are brought in line and adopted by the council, we can then do a review and understand, is there any realignment that needs to take place, just to make sure that the two strategies, or the multiple strategies, aren't in conflict with each other. I think the risk is quite low because I've been involved in all the conversations, but it's an opportunity to do that if we need to. I think at that point I will leave it there and just ask if anyone has got any questions on the document.
Thank you. Just, John, my computer is off at the moment, but I know the question that I would like to ask. On the strategy, on page 90, on the chart, so if you just bring it up, at the bottom, it talks about purchase of council home, and you got, the future years going forward, 1.685 million pound, target. Now, if you look at, I just got to go back to the report by Grant Thornton in item 4, which it talked about, generally, that the government's got a policy now that you can take the sale of the council houses, capital receipt, and then use it to purchase council houses. That's what it is, and the rent. So why is it just left at 1.685? Is it just a kind of average you take that going forward, that's what happened? It could go up or down, yeah?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mystery. Yeah, what we do is as part of our normal capital programme, we make an assumption that we'll purchase a certain number of properties every year, and like I say, we can use right to buy receipts in order to fund that. At the moment, we can fund up to 40% of any council purchases for using right to buy receipts. There is a cap that is going to be placed on the ability for council, or there is a cap for councils using capital right to buy receipts to buy council homes, because I think the intention is they want you to build your own rather than buy off the market. So we've identified that we've always got a demand for purchasing houses. We've got a housing acquisition fund as well, which is about £13 million. So we've just set a limit on those properties, and we will look to see how we'll finance that as we go along. But certainly it's recognised we've got quite a big waiting list in the borough at the moment, and we are looking at all of the options in order to reduce that waiting list. That may be building our own through the joint venture that we've got with Norse. It could be just buying sites as and when they become available on the market.
Well, we're asked for the 4 items. Firstly, to be recommended to Council that the Treasury Management Strategy incorporating the annual investment strategy, including associated limits and specific indicators, be approved. Thank you. Yes, that's. And secondly, the minimum the minimum revenue provision policy be approved. Yes, thank you. And 3, that the maximum investment limit at Lloyds Bank be increased from 5 million to 10 million. Thank you. And finally, that the new capital strategy is approved with an initial review to take place during September, 6 months after incorporation. Thank you. Item 6, I think, is Chris.
Thank you, Chair.
Take us through that.
So this report is on the development of the internal audit plan for 2022-23, and the proposed approach is similar to previous years. And the proposal is that we'll review sources of information such as risk registers, the corporate strategy, financial statements, project plans, etc., etc. Review the results and coverage of audits over the last 4 years as well. And for members' information, we hold what we call an audit universe, or a long list, which is of all the areas that we could potentially subject to an audit review. And what we'll do is review and refine that list. Each area will be assigned an overall risk rating as per previous years, and then we'll consider all the areas which are high or medium risk for inclusion in the audit plan, particularly those areas which haven't been subject to recent review. We'll be having stakeholder meetings with each member of the leadership team during February, and we'll also discuss the key emerging risks for the year ahead and areas where assurance or consultancy support might be required, for example, in relation to key corporate projects or initiatives that are designed to deliver the corporate strategy. The plan coverage will then be refined and prioritised, and a draft internal audit plan will be presented to the leadership team during March and then to this committee on the 29th of March. Under the public sector internal audit standards, members should be consulted as part of this process and not just asked to rubber stamp the audit plan. And members are encouraged to provide input to this process by suggesting areas of concern or high risk as they perceive it. And that could be done either today at the meeting, or you're very welcome to contact me separately before the end of February, and when I can take account of members' input. Members, as I say, members will be asked to approve the plan on the 29th of March, but on the 29th of March you'll also be provided with full details of all the areas considered for inclusion in the plan, the overall risk assessment and the rationale for inclusion or exclusion, so there'll be an opportunity at that meeting to either add new assignments and or remove other assignments from the plan. So members are asked to approve the process, which is in line with previous years, and also to consider and contribute ideas of areas where they'd require assurance from us in the next financial year. And happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Chris, it's a general question, really. With regard to the formation of the trading company, Caldecott Developments, as I recall, there would be what are called shareholders that will overview and oversee the activities of that body when it's up and running. Would that, because of that section happening with shareholders, does that mean that that would not ultimately fit into this plan, or would it be dragged into it as well, or would they be totally separately?
Thank you. I think that's a really good question, and it's one which will line out as part of the stakeholder conversations, because as a standalone entity, it will have its own audit arrangements. It may well be that the in-house internal audit function also carries out reviews on that company, but that's something that we'll need to confirm in due course. John, did you want to come in on that? No? Okay. It looked like you might want to. It's fine.
Chris.
Chair, just pick up what Andrew just said on that side. I think there is enough check and balance on the Caldecott, because I'm a member of one of the stakeholder, and it's totally autonomous, I think, how it operates. It's not accountable to the general, the council, so it may probably end up at the end report, probably, Chris. I think it's not something that, the way we've been set up, we are registered with the external body. We are directors, and we have a hell of a lot of responsibility, and there is a check and balance, and there is also a separate, body that oversees the two committee that's been formed.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to say that the opening question will be how will assurances be provided around the good and sound running of that standalone entity, and I'll evaluate what's said in the discussions, and when I present the audit plan at the end of March, I'll explain the rationale at that point as well.
Are there any further questions on the thing? I think, Chris, you know, it looks a very good process that you'll go through. I would just say that, you know, should there be anything that the members want to have considered to be included in the audit plan, you know, just reiterate that you can get in touch with Chris during the process and have a discussion with him, and then we'll consider the plan in the fullness of time. At this stage, we've been asked to approve the process for delivering the internal audit plan. I'll propose that. And also that we should consider areas in which the assurance is required internal audit during 2023, which I think we've just mentioned. So again, we can take that on board. Well, that's the end of the public agenda. Agenda item 7 is the motion to exclude the public under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, and for us to consider passing the following resolution. Under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items on the ground that they may involve the likely disclosure of information defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 3 of Schedule 12A of the Act. I'd like to propose this. Could I ask the members? Thank you, that's passed. Could I ask you to finish the online stream, please?